So we're going to talk a little Mass Effect right now. It's been a while since we've talked some Mass Effect. I mean, there hasn't been much to talk about. Recently, within the past couple of months, it took me a long time to do it because of how big the game is. I replayed Mass Effect Andromeda. And if I'm remembering correctly, I haven't played this game since it first came out, which was 2017 of March. So actually this month. So it's actually been 5 years since I've played the game. I have a couple of thoughts, and I wanted to make a video for anybody out there who is currently finding themselves in a situation of wanting to play video games, wanting to replay Mass Effect, wanting to get into Mass Effect, which if you do, if you've thought about it, or if I'm literally giving you the idea to do it right now, do it. It is the best video game franchise of all time, especially 1 through 3. I also wanted to give my little bit of insight on if you were considering playing Mass Effect Andromeda in 2022, what it looks like, and if you can expect anything different from your previous playthrough. 5 years after the game's release, what does it look like? How much has the game changed? Well, we have to remember that when the game came out, it went on sale almost immediately. I think it was like 6 to 8 months in, and they stopped doing patches or fixes for the game entirely, and they moved on to the dreaded Anthem. When this game came out, it was getting a ton of different types of reviews. I was seeing sites giving it a 5, giving it a 6. Sometimes I was even seeing 4s, but generally the reviews I saw were 6s. 6s to 7s at the very least. So people were very iffy on this game when it came out. I think a lot of people realized the game was nowhere near perfect, and this is what happens when you're forced to make a AAA game in 18 months with no true background to what you want it to be, with no story fully planned, and that's exactly what happens when you play the game. Now, I know when listening to me, it might sound at times I'm completely dogging on this game, or it might seem like I just don't like the game. Don't get me wrong, there are decent things, there are even fun things about this game, but more than anything, the game does struggle to live up to the previous 3. And I'm not saying Mass Effect Andromeda had to be better than 1 through 3, especially with the information we got early on that it was going to be in the Andromeda galaxy. It's hard to start a brand new story and beat the monumental effect of Mass Effects 1 through 3. That's not going to be an easy feat, and it definitely wasn't. It was not doable. It did not happen, but I'm not saying this game needed to be a 9 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10. There are moments where this game is a solid 7. There are also moments in this game where it is a 4. So the idea of going off to Andromeda is certainly interesting, and they're going in a time period just after Mass Effect 1, in between 1 and 2, and off into Andromeda, where 600 years later, the effects of Mass Effect 1 through 3 are no longer felt, or don't even matter in general. Now, let's be honest. EA was way too afraid to do a Mass Effect 4 and move on with the future of Mass Effect 3 after the 50-50 response of how the game ended. And whether or not you like Mass Effect 3's ending, there is pretty much only one ending that allows the possibility of Shepard's return, and there are only 2 endings that could allow for the future of the Milky Way galaxy. I mean, if you choose synthesis, it's over. Mass Effect is done there and then. So of course, you make a game called Mass Effect Andromeda where you don't need to deal with the repercussions of Mass Effects 1 through 3. I think Andromeda has a couple of interesting things in it. You meet a couple of characters who have some friends or family ties from the Milky Way. It's nice to see equipment and armor and guns that were used in 1 through 3 make an appearance again in Andromeda, to at least give you the remembrance that, hey, Mass Effect 1 through 3 is not completely forgotten. The M8 Avenger's still there, the N7 armor's still there, we still got Mass Effect fields that we talk about. There are still some effects that remind you, like, hey, It's still Mass Effect. And I actually think what the problem with the game is, and it's not even so much the story, it's just the world building. I think forgetting about the Milky Way was not the way to go, because like I just said earlier, Mass Effects 1 through 3 is so detrimental to the Mass Effect world. Once you go into Andromeda, you feel like everything you fought for and everything you did in 1 through 3 just don't matter anymore. And there are so many times that when I was playing the game, I was thinking to myself like, man, I want these characters to meet the characters from 1 through 3. I want these people to have witnessed what the Reaper War was like. You know, you have the original and usual and almost kind of generic human, Turian, Asari, Krogan, Solarian. Where's the Quarians, the Hanar, the Drell, the Volus? They left a huge opportunity of using some of these alien races that we saw in previous games, but they could have done it in a way where now you really get to dive into the histories and personalities of those aliens, and they completely left them out of the game. If you're gonna start fresh in Andromeda, start fresh. Start everything from scratch and do it all over again, but in a new light. Whereas with Mass Effects 1 through 3, they did that, but for the main alien races. This is your chance to do that for the secondary races and make them just as important as the first alien races, but they did not do that either. I just felt like the game is filled with so many moments that they do try to say, hey, forget Mass Effects 1 through 3, but that's the whole point, is you shouldn't have to, and they shouldn't make it feel like that's what they were trying to do. And speaking of alien races, 2 different alien races, 3 if you will, with the Remnant, like that's it. And I saw recently that there was some concept art of a bunch of different alien races they had planned for the game, and only a couple of them ended up entering the game. I mean, the only friendly alien race you meet is the Angara. The second alien race would be the Remnant, who are literally just robots, which you then find out the Jardin created the Remnant, but you never see their face. And then you have the Ket, which, let's be honest here, the Ket are basically another civilization who harvest other species and turn them into their own kind. The only difference is that where Reapers view their harvests as like the pinnacle of civilization and evolution, the Ket believe their exaltation is almost kind of religious and spiritual. I do feel like the Ket are very unoriginal, and the Archon especially is a character that I really wanted to like, but I just found myself not really caring about, because all they talked about was this meridian. It's on a scale of power that you can't even imagine. And when we're playing the game, we're so focused on changing the weather of planets, and that's why we want control of Meridian, because the minute we get Meridian, we'll be able to control the weather on all the planets we're trying to inhabit. But then Archon says something about how like that's just scratching the surface. You know, usually villains have a tendency of revealing their master plan. Reveal your master plan. What do you want Meridian for? They constantly talk about this crazy Remnant technology that's capable of insane things, but they never get into the details of it because they themselves don't even understand what it is. Not only do the characters in the game don't understand what Remnant tech can do, but when they were writing the game and the story, they didn't understand or know what they wanted to do with the Remnant. I'm sure if they made an Andromeda 2, there would be some answers that were gonna get cleared up, but it really just felt that they threw the Ket and the Archon into this game because they needed one common threat that you as a player and all the characters in the game could rally together and dislike. And continuing down that path of aliens, I was thinking to myself, man, we are about to be in a brand new world. The way Mass Effect 1 presented us with so many open doors, and all those doors we could walk through, explore, learn, take action. We're about to go to Andromeda, and it might not be the same, but we're gonna meet like another Citadel Council of Andromeda species. We're gonna meet all these aliens. Nope. One alien species. And that alien species we meet is almost a little primitive, considering how spread their numbers are and how much they just get decked on by the Ket. The last thing you should expect when playing a Mass Effect game is the lack of aliens. That's a little disappointing. And speaking of characters, I'm just gonna be straight up with you. These characters will be nowhere near as good as the Normandy crew. Liam, garbage. Trash character. He is awful. I cannot stand him. From what I've read on many different forums, I don't think many people do like him. Vetra is okay. She's basically Garrus, but female form. Cora, she's not bad. There are times in the game where I like her a lot, but then there are other times of the game where I find her very, very bland. Drac is really good, but Drac is basically just another Rex. Jaal is fantastic, even though I was just ripping on the game for not having enough alien species. I will say that when you do meet Jaal, he is awesome. He's by far the best squad mate in the game. I would not even argue if someone were to tell me that Jaal is in their top 5 or 6 squad mates in Mass Effect. Jaal is a fantastic character. PB, she's okay. I can see why people would like her. She's a little fun. She's kind of bubbly. Sometimes I think she's a little annoying. She's not the worst. And then you have all the other shipmates like Gil and Suvi and Kahlo and Lexi, and they're all fine. Like, they're not terrible characters, but there's not enough to them to make me love them the way we all loved the Normandy crew. All of those characters had vast different types of personalities. You got to know them through all 3 games, and even if there were characters that you only had for Mass Effect 2, you know, characters like Thane or Samara, they did a great job with their dialogue to make you feel very connected with them. In this game, I'm not exactly sure if it's the personalities I don't like or if it's simply just the dialogue that doesn't sit right with me, and it doesn't have me loving a lot of the characters. And speaking of dialogue, that is another issue with the game. They went more with the Dragon Age route, where they gave you 4 different options. You had the top left, which was emotional, you had the bottom left, which was casual, then top right was logical, and bottom right was professional. They executed this in Dragon Age Inquisition very well, because when you used some of these dialogue options, the characters you brought with you on missions or cutscenes or any character around you that would be involved in this dialogue scene, they would react accordingly to how you responded. That is what they were going for in this game. And something else before I get into my point about dialogue that you can notice, when you enter dialogue scenes, the camera does go to shoulder level, viewing the character you're talking to, which is exactly what they did in Dragon Age Inquisition. Both of these games share the Frostbite engine, and honestly, they couldn't have made a bigger mistake of using Frostbite for Mass Effect than the Unreal Engine. And I am so happy that the Unreal Engine is coming back for the next Mass Effect game, because it is Mass Effect. That also goes to the graphics as well. We don't need to go there because that has been rehashed over the past 5 years, but man, the facial animations suck. But back to the dialogue. None of those dialogue options really matter. I could be a rider who is picking logical every chance I get throughout this entire game. Everybody I'm talking to will respond to me with an already pre-recorded dialogue. There are not multiple dialogues recorded that will be respondent to Ryder depending on the emotion he chooses. A lot of the dialogue options don't really matter, and something else I notice throughout the game is that when you make big decisions that inflict 2 different parties, even if you choose one side over the other, you don't need to work for that relationship. That person who maybe you wronged or you took the other side of, in a couple of dialogue scenes, they'll be your best friend all over again. It won't even really matter what you do. Not many characters stay mad at you, and if they are mad at you, it's not hard to get them back on your side. Now, this is actually one of the biggest things I wanted to talk about. The story is not awful. It's not great. Me, like many other people, are not so captivated by it because it's hard to fight for something when you don't even fully understand it. I know the Remnant technology was the key to making a home in the Helios cluster. Although, what is the Remnant technology? We had an entire game that opened up hundreds of questions. 2 of them were answered. Number 1, the creators of the Remnant, their names are the Jardin, which now opens up hundreds of other questions. And number 2, that their Remnant technology is meant for more than just changing the weather. You play easily an almost 100-hour game, give or take, with absolutely no answers on the number 1 thing that is plaguing your interest of Andromeda. We don't even know what the Scourge is. Only thing we know is that the Scourge is, for whatever reason, attracted to the Remnant. What happened is the question everyone wants to know. Are they connected to the Reapers in some way? There are a lot of theories about that one. I'm kind of inclined to believe there is a history there. I even have a little bit of a theory that the Jardin are actually a Milky Way species who developed a lot more than the Reapers thought, and they found a way to get to Andromeda, but when they got to Andromeda, some Reapers followed them. Who knows at this point? But this is what I'm saying. Let's just say the game gives you 100 questions, 1 or 2 is answered. That's not enough. And also about the story. When they were promoting this game, they were talking about how this was supposed to be a much more personalized adventure. It was literally supposed to be an adventure story where you and a small group of people traverse a piece of the galaxy. It wasn't supposed to be a Commander Shepard army versus army, this is the fate of the galaxy type of story. That is what it ended up being. And I'm not saying I'm complaining that that's what it was. What I'm complaining about is why they told everyone it wasn't going to be that, and it ended up being that. Other than trying to make you forget about Mass Effects 1 through 3, involving Reaper and Liara Easter eggs into the game, but not mentioning it to any other characters other than you and your Sam, having mediocre dialogue, stale and bland story, not many alien species, is there something that this game does right? And yes, there is. Like I said in this video, I was gonna come off being a little anal about this game, and it's only because I'm so passionate about the franchise of Mass Effect. But what they do good in this game is the combat. I think the combat is very easy and it's very efficient. I do love the whole profile system where you can essentially just choose from any of your powers at any time. And I like how now you weren't locked down to one class. Like, you have to be a soldier. All right, that means grenades and ammo power. Or you gotta be biotic. Okay, singularities, warps, barriers. Now you could mix and combine with anything you wanted, and I did really, really like that. I like the whole jetpack option. I like that if you choose to be more of a soldier frame, you are going to have the full-on jetpack. Or if you choose to be something like an explorer prototype, when you use the jetpack to jump or dodge, you actually disappear for a quick second. It's really cool how they did some of those differences. The one thing I do miss is not being able to control your squad mates' abilities. I feel like that was a staple to Mass Effect, and when they took that out, I kind of felt like I was missing something in the gameplay. It is not enough for me to hate the gameplay. It is just something that I wish they found a way to maintain. Once again, it's not perfect by any means. The amount of bugs and glitches this game has is disgusting. They clearly, on their last couple of patches for the game, did nothing to make it better. The whole design system of the jumping and the vaulting is that when you jump and you hit a ledge, Ryder is supposed to grab on and pull himself up. I can't tell you how many times I've jumped to ledges and he just slides down the edge, or how many times I've jumped up to a ledge and he does the vault formation, but then as he vaults, he still slides down whatever ledge I was trying to grab onto. Or how many times I press O to like dodge ahead or back or to the side, and as I press it, he'll make the dodge animation, but he stays stationary in the spot he's in. So many glitches, so many bugs. Now, okay, how about the Nomad? Is the exploration good? Yeah, it's good. It's fun. You get the point. It's not groundbreaking. It's not gonna change the way games are gonna be made for exploration in the future. But what it attempts to do, it does all right. The exploration is good. It does give me hope that moving on into the future of Mass Effect, they will be able to develop that even more so, because I think it was a good starting point with the way they handled it in this game, but it can be so much better. The Tempest is great, and even the Galaxy map is pretty good. It is very reminiscent to how it looked in Mass Effect 1. A lot of similarities there. The issue, once again, with the Galaxy map in the game is that when you go from planet to planet, a lot of the planets start to look the exact same. Either they're gas giants, they're barren ice or desert worlds, or some of these planets have like weird volcano cracks in the planet. They all just look copy and pasted, whereas with Mass Effects 1 through 3, I swear it felt 98% of the planets had specific detail put into them. Mass Effect Andromeda does remind me of a game that just because it's newer does not mean it's better. 2012 to 2017, we waited 5 to 6 years for the game. Of course, in the moment, you're gonna feel like, you know what? I don't care if this game could have or should have been better. It's Mass Effect. We got something. I'm happy. I will describe it like this. Mass Effect Andromeda is a game that for the first 5 to 10 hours, you're looking at this game and you're like, all right, this is a solid 9. This is a pretty decent game. You get to Eos, you're doing your first couple of missions, getting to know the world around you. Then you meet up with the Angara and you start to get to know more about the Ket, and you start to think to yourself, there are issues. This is about a 7.5, maybe 8.5, 7.5 to 8.5. That's where I would go with it. It's a decent game. It's not bad. Then all of a sudden you save the Moshai, and now you're moving on to other planets like Havarl and Kadara, and you're thinking to yourself, all right, I've been playing this game long enough to know how buggy it is, to know the graphics, especially facial animations, are nowhere near the best. Some of the mechanics are not pretty either. This is a straight up 7 out of 10 game. It's good, but there are some decent issues to it. Then all of a sudden, you start hitting the last moments of the game, and you really start to realize like, oh yeah, this is a 6 out of 10. You could even argue a 5 out of 10. I wouldn't fault you. It is nowhere near a great functioning game. They needed to take a lot more time on this. They clearly didn't know what they wanted to do with the story. There are a lot of things that are not finalized in the game. There are some things that keep the game fun, entertaining, and keep you going. But at the end of the day, when you finish it, you are going to feel a bad taste in your mouth because you're going to feel like, man, it could have been a lot more. At the end, what am I telling you here? What does Mass Effect Andromeda look like 5 years after its release? Not much different from when it first came out, at least from what I remember. There definitely has been work on some graphics, but it is not pretty by any means still. Tons of work was needed. A lot of bugs and glitches. Dialogue can be fun in the moment, but when you realize that it's not really important to any outcomes, it gets a little frustrating. The story is not as captivating as you want it to be, and you are left with hundreds of more questions than answers. I still appreciate the game in some senses because it is still Mass Effect, and there are still some interesting things about the game. And I don't hate every character or every squad mate. It's just some of them are not as interesting as your Normandy crew. I think if it's been 5 years since you've played the game, maybe give it a shot. Go back to it, and you might click with it better than I did. I will say, with the Mass Effect Legendary Edition out now, it's hard to want to play an incomplete unfinished story of Mass Effect Andromeda when you can just play Mass Effects 1 through 3, a complete beginning to a complete end. Maybe there will be some worth into playing Mass Effect Andromeda again. It does seem that Shepard's returning in some way. Maybe certain characters from Mass Effects 1 through 3 are returning. It seems like they are pulling a lot from the aftermath of Mass Effect 3. Also, in the trailer, when you see the Andromeda galaxy, apparently that was intentional. So is Ryder, the Tempest crew, or the Andromeda Initiative in general making a comeback? Who really knows at this point? It might be worth playing for that simple fact, although nothing's confirmed, so we don't know. But I'll just say this, if you don't want to play Mass Effect Andromeda again, I absolutely don't blame you. But if you do want to play Mass Effect Andromeda again, all the power to you. Hopefully you do enjoy it more than I do. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. But if you do come out of it feeling very 50-50 on it the way I do, or just full out come out hating it, don't say I never told you. But anyways, everyone, that is it for this video. I could keep on going about Andromeda and connecting it back to Mass Effects 1 through 3, but I think you get the point. And there are a ton of videos out there who are made by other content creators who actually go into the nitty-gritty details of the post-production and pre-production of the games, what makes it good and what makes it bad. But this was just my 2 cents into if you really should go back to Mass Effect Andromeda, and if you simply just wanted to hear my opinion on it. Anyways, everyone, that is it for this video. If you want more Mass Effect content on this channel, it might not be the biggest playlist, but I do have one for you. You can click on the link in the description below, or I'll put a tag for it at the end of the video. I mean, one of my biggest videos on my channel has actually come from a Mass Effect theory, so if you want to check that video out too, once again, description below, tag in the video. But that is it for this video, so until next time, I will talk to you all very soon.